You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Tyler, and I am joined by my two friends, Amanda and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage, and we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome everyone to the show.
Hello.
Does it not feel like we were just talking like backstage before we went live? Like last week we went into like hyperdrive and we like organized everything and we started promoting and we released like a bunch of episodes on like the actual podcast platforms this week, and I feel like we're taking it to the next level and we're like jumping straight into like, okay, we're taking this seriously now. And so I'm just proud of us because we're really putting in some time and effort into putting out our show, and we're so happy. Well, at least I'm so happy that we're doing that.
Oh, you can speak for me on that one too. That's fair.
It feels so good. I feel like a kid on a sugar rush, had too much sweets, and now I'm like, ooh, where do I put all my energy?
Yeah.
And we can celebrate something super big also, because we just finished our first Come As You Are binge-a-thon this week. And
oh, Stephanie. I think Stephanie's frozen. Well,
okay, well, we're celebrating the binge-a-thon in her honor. I don't know where she went.
She's gonna pop up. I bet you she drops off like she did last week. I think she did that last week too.
Yeah, she did.
We'll continue, and hopefully we get our
she's not sitting there talking to herself.
Hopefully we get our poor Stephanie back here very soon. I'm gonna throw it in the little private chat just in case she doesn't know.
Yeah, she's sitting there talking to herself. You ever have those moments like where you're sitting there and you're talking, and suddenly you're like, hello? Is anybody there? And you realize the other person, there, yeah.
Gone.
She got kicked out. Okay, well, she'll be back. But you ever had those moments? And I do that, I don't say often, but when it does happen, I'm the first one to, as soon as I stop hearing the person, I'm like, hang up, because I want them to stop talking instead of spending that whole time talking to themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, we're here.
Yes. It's amazing. I can't believe we still have like in 2023, I still can't believe we have like spotty internet connection. Like it,
right?
It kind of mystifies me that we still have Stephanie's back. Woo! We were just saying, we were like, we can't believe it's 2023, almost 2024, and we still have spotty internet connection in places. Like how we're like landing people on Mars. Well, not yet, but that's up in the air here. But like,
this is so weird. I know that this happened to me last week also, right?
Yeah.
Like I was gone for like 4 minutes or something. At least this time it wasn't as long. And you know what it is? It's honestly the whole day while I'm working, and I'm also in like meetings and streaming the heck out of the internet, nothing, right? And then we come together on Friday evenings. At least for me, it's evening. And all of a sudden my internet decides to say, nah, I already want to go into the weekend. Come on, really? Now you're going to go like on StreamYard and do all that stuff? Come on. But the interesting thing about all of this is also that my internet the whole time says, no, I'm working just fine. So it's just, I don't know what's happening there, but I think I need to have a conversation with the provider, because I do not want to miss a second of what is going on here.
We didn't really get very far because you dropped off, and then we like changed subjects and topics and things like that. So What are we talking about today, y'all?
I don't know. What are we talking about? Do we ever know what we're talking about?
No. I'm not gonna lie. I usually have like not an idea, but like usually there's really something heavy on my mind that I'm like kind of comes out. But today I just showed up and I was like, oh, we got to do this. We got to make a podcast today. And so I'm feeling today like checking in. I'm feeling very like, I don't know if zen's the right word, but it was just like I wasn't stressing or freaking out or like worried about something. Like I just showed up today and I was like, okay, we're here. Let's do it. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think that's when we know we're in flow, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like last week when we went into like, well, Amanda, what are you thinking? And where that got us. So don't ask me.
Well, but how are you feeling today, Amanda?
Oh, how am I feeling? I'm feeling really excited. I think there's a lot of things that I've been working on, and seeing them all come together is really so exciting. I think that's one of the best things when you have when you have an idea and you have a vision, and then seeing that in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have a list of like 5,000 goals, and it's a massive list. And though sometimes as I'm scrolling or I check in with it every now and again, and it takes a really long time to read everything that's on there. And so it can be kind of overwhelming in a sense, but it's also really awesome when I can look at the list and say, wow, that's happening. Wow, I can see that in the world. So for me, that's where I'm at this week. Just seeing a lot of those things really coming to fruition and having that like manifestation on fire. That's my week.
Isn't that like such a great feeling when you like can look back on your journals and you can look back on all of the things that you've been dreaming about and writing and be like, oh, look, it's finally coming together. Like I'm actually in a very similar space, even though I'm a little bit more scattered in terms of, I have like projects over here and projects over here, and like nothing's super connected, but it's kind of connected. And but I was like putting together some things today, and I was playing around with some new tech this morning, like some new different like like course, like how to host courses and things like that. And I just started geeking out. And I was like, this is so exciting. And I was like playing around with like colors and all the different platforms, and I was like putting together, and I'm a very visual person. So like when I have an idea, I don't care if it's like a waste of time. Like some people will say it might be a waste of time, but like I have to go into Canva and create like the cover photo and like actually kind of see the big brand picture all together and things like that. And so I get really creative in like stylizing everything. And I was like putting it all together like over the course of this week. And I was like, wow, like this is everything that I've kind of been working up to is like coming together. And I'm like, that makes sense. And this makes sense. And it's all starting to connect. And y'all, that has been like my biggest struggle since I started coaching, was like nothing ever felt super cohesive. Like I had an idea over here, and then I had an idea over here, and then I had an idea over here, and none of it connected and none of it made sense. And then this week I was really starting to kind of look at the bigger themes and find the bigger connection points. And I was like, wow, it is playing out just so beautifully. And I think that is my deep appreciation this week, is like, even when we feel like we're not in control, the universe has us, And I think even when we don't have a clear picture, if you just act on your instincts and your intuition and keep moving forward, like things play out exactly how they need to play out. And it's really beautiful to see that. So I'm happy for you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks. I love that. Just that feeling of knowing that almost gives a sense of purpose, I think. And it gives meaning to the things, or gives meaning even to our ideas, right? I think, as in my opinion, I think everyone is creative. It's just a matter of tapping into that creativity, and different people, it shows up in different ways, right? Like, as you were sharing, for you, it's like this creating these cohesive things, and really, having the covers and all the things to visually, right? And though I'm definitely right there with you, I love, love, love creating things like that. Like, graphic design is something that I just am obsessed with. I think it's so much fun. But really seeing, how we can take an idea and put meaning and purpose behind it by sharing it with other people. And I think maybe that's especially because we're coaches. So the work that we're doing and the work that we're sharing in the world is really in service of others.
I just want to say I'm really happy for the both of you. It always brings me so much joy to see you just talk about what you're passionate about. And I mean, we're all coaches, so just talking about how our coaching businesses are coming together, or what is our purpose as a coach, that I feel like that always lights a fire in between us, right? And I especially love what you said, Tyler, and I think we cannot reiterate that enough. The idea that the universe has our back, and that even when we can't see, maybe we think that, oh my God, there's this like huge abyss and nothing makes sense and what's going on, and we feel like we're breaking down. That there's something greater than ourselves that holds us even in those moments, and that probably a breakdown is like right before breakthrough, and just holding on to that and not giving up. I think that's such a wonderful mindset. When you have established this kind of mindset, I think then really anything is possible.
I'm curious. Because this is something that I've been trying to put into words and understand, because it's something for me that feels like it just happens for me. And I wonder if maybe you guys have some insight in the sense of would we teach this to someone?
To believe that anything's possible.
Yeah, like in that, and I think, like, having that growth mindset, right? That's such a big piece of it. And I just think that's so much of who I am as a person. It's such my default. Like, I'm very positive, or something goes wrong and I'm like, oh, well, there's a creative solution. There's an opportunity for growth, and all of those things that comes with it. And so I wonder sometimes, how do we like put that into words to teach that to someone else? And how do you go, like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? How do you find this positivity in maybe a challenge or negative situation?
That's a great question. That's actually a really good question, Amanda, because I think all three of us, and again, I think it comes with our titles as coaches and just being in the personal development space and being self-help junkies and growth-minded people. I mean, I think it comes naturally to us. And I think for others, I don't even know. I mean, I know there's no right or wrong answer to this. Like, and I just got nervous. I was like, oh wait, I'm going to say the wrong thing. But what was coming up for me was, I think it just starts by taking an action, and then that action sparks another action, and then another action. And it's like all of the teeny tiny baby steps that you can get a client to do. And I think sometimes when we look at transformation, we think, oh my gosh, transformation is like this huge topic and this huge outcome. And it is like, when you think total transformation or radically transformed, like there's a bigness to it. But I think that bigness is all it all is in it all is it's all made up of really tiny, teeny tiny actions and steps forward. And I think like as a coach, like I think our job is to help clients have a bigger awareness and see other potentials that they might not see inside of themselves and in their world and things like that. And then it's making those suggestions and recommendations and like helping them come to that point of realization that they do have control and they can take action and they can make changes. And it's a lot of like it's a lot of recognizing your own authority and realizing that, hey, I have the power. And at least this has been kind of my personal journey. And what I've realized is like you get to the transformation by recognizing I have the power to change. And for some people, that comes instantly. Like I think for a lot of coaches, again, we're growth minded individuals. It's like pretty easy for us to get there. But for others, I think it's like it usually, in my experience, it takes some sort of life change event, whether they like lose their jobs or somebody dies or they get a divorce or something like that. It's usually like a big kind of milestone moment that makes them go, I need to do something different. And, I think as coaches, it's not our job to force the awareness on people, but when they have the awareness, I think we can help them pull it out and really see the awareness in its totality.
I also think that awareness is such a huge part of it. This like, who am I and what kind of mindset am I nourishing right now? When we think of whatever is up here as this like landscape, and we're painting this certain kind of picture, and we're usually using like the same brush and the same colors to paint this picture, and we have these like habits, and then to ask ourselves, the outcome that we see in our lives at the moment is the outcome of the picture that we paint. And is that still the picture we want to nourish? Do we want to continue to use the same kind of pencils for it, or do we want to change that? Do we want to nourish maybe another kind of picture that gives us a different outcome? And so I think it's this combination of mindset, and then what Tyler mentioned already so beautifully of like tiny actions, and put them in front of one another, and like continue to make these little decisions that will then, these small hinges swinging big doors. So to start small, and then you will get the big results at some point. So I'd say like mindset and habits or actions. I think that's a good start.
I love this. It's, and I think we're making it. And I think for us, it seems like this is such an easy, right? Like it's very natural almost for us. And I wonder, like, for someone who really does struggle with this, what that experience is like. Because I mean, I know as a teenager, I definitely really struggled with this. But at the same time, there was always something for me in the back of my mind that I just knew in my heart that this wasn't what it was meant to be like. Like I wasn't meant to struggle. So as much as I was struggling, there was still something that I knew was there's something better. It doesn't have to be this way. And this is really for me, like inspired me to support other teenagers because I want to speak to that little voice. And I think we all do have that, little voice inside of us that even though we all have that inner critic that's really nasty and can be super mean to us sometimes, I do also think we have that voice of wisdom, like that really, our inner truth, right? And when it is just whispering to us and we can raise the volume on that and kind of lower the volume on that inner critic, I feel like that's kind of the shift if I'm imagining for me. And I'm curious if that's something that I don't know if that's how everyone experiences the world, right? Because we're all so different. And so I've really lately been trying to describe this, like how do you shift? And I love what you guys shared. I think this taking action, I love the empowerment of realizing that we have choice. I think that's a big piece of it, right? Realizing that yes, there are things that are going to happen in life that we can't control. This is fact of life, right? However, we can control how we react or how we respond in those types of situations, right? And I think that just gives us, it's so much more empowering.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing there I would disagree with. And I think what we're actually doing is we're adding on that next layer to all of this of recognizing, one, we have the power of choice. We have more control than I think what we initially think we have. And then also there's that point of surrender and trust and faith and all of those things of where like, well, sometimes things just happen and we cannot control it. We don't have any power over it. Doesn't mean that we are less than or, we've failed at something. It's just like that is the power of the universe, the world at play, the world in motion. And I think oftentimes when we recognize, okay, what do we have control over and what do we not have control over, it allows us to calm down. It allows us to not be so frantic and not be so anxious and all of these types of things. And, I think when I look back on my journey, and again, this is just my personal reflections, but my 20s were totally defined by like initially suffering and being in a lot of pain and recognizing, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. Like I don't have to be like I don't have to be depressed. I don't have to be anxious. I don't have to, dislike the work that I'm doing. And like that those kind of conscious awakenings, I don't know if that's the right word, but it was like, yeah, they're like little awakenings of like you start to like have those moments of awareness where it's like, oh, I don't have to like, I don't have to make this choice, or I don't have to like settle for this, or, whatever's happening. Like that was my journey, was like a bunch of me like waking up and being like, oh, you mean I don't have to like hate my job? And oh, you mean I don't have to like stay at a school just because everybody wants me to? Like I can go out and like change my major and like, I mean, these were all like, college areas, of my life. But that was a huge thing for me, was recognizing that I have power. I have autonomy over my life. And, when you recognize that and you start to understand what you can and cannot control, it feels like you kind of open up a magic box and you get like all of this power. And it's really cool. But then, I think in the beginning of my journey, I was so focused on trying to be in control of everything. Like once I realized I was like, oh, I have the power of choice. And that means I'm going to go out and control everything. And then you start to realize, oh, wait, that's not how it works. It's like we are in a harmonious relationship, or sometimes not harmonious relationship with the universe, you know? And it's a lot easier to accept what you cannot control and control what you can, and just consciously kind of create your life from that place of awareness. And so that was my journey. And I think, it's like you don't just cultivate a relationship with the universe right at the beginning. You don't really like tap into spirit or into spirituality right at the beginning. It's a journey, it's a process, it's an uncovering and discovering, that happens. And it when you go down that path and you choose to work on yourself, and again, that's the choice that you can make to work on yourself or not work on yourself. But when you do choose to work on yourself, amazing things can happen. you know and the growth can be exponential. And like, we're never done growing, we're never done. Like, the journey doesn't end. But it's like you have to make the choice to go for it. And this is why, for me, when I was this week, when I was like doing my reflections and kind of figuring out like, what is my big theme, like, everything that I do, like, how does it all connect? And to me, my big theme is it comes back to self, comes back to individuality, comes back to authenticity. It's like, how are we being truly aligned and authentic to ourselves? What does that look like? you know even from like even from like the simple choices of like, what's your favorite movie, or what's your favorite color, or where do you like to go on vacation? Because for so many years, like, everybody was like I would always say, oh, I love to go to the beach, because like that's what everybody says. And then I was like, well, I actually don't love the beach as much as like the general population seems to love the beach. I'm like, I prefer like, either like escaping into the mountains where it's like nature and hiking and beauty, or, I really like going to explore different cities. I don't like sand between my toes and sand in other places of my body where sand shouldn't be. And that was one of those things where like, and again, that's a really silly example, but I think it's the power of you deciding what it is that you want, what it is that you like, what it is that you dislike, and then, having that awareness and having that control, and then surrendering to the higher things that happen in life. Because I can't, like, I look back on my 20s, I can't control the fact that my friend died in a car accident. I can't control, the fact that my parents didn't make enough money and had no college savings for me. And so like, I was able to forgive a lot of that, and I let go of all of the weight and all of the heaviness that I was carrying, because it was like I had no control over either of those scenarios. So why am I putting the pressure on myself? Why am I feeling bad about myself? And so it's really cultivating what you like, what you dislike, cultivating a relationship with yourself. And I think at the end of the day, and I know Stephanie's going to love to hear this, but I think it really does come back to self-love, and recognizing, that recognizing just how awesome you are as an individual, and appreciating your individuality for what it is.
You're right. I really did love it. Every word of what you just said, every single word. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think we are like having these like visors on both sides and walking through life and being very afraid. And then all of a sudden, when we start to look at ourselves and we start to look at, oh, I don't actually have to do it like this. And we are adding in the ingredient of curiosity, I would say, and taking off a little bit of the judgment. And instead of saying, like, oh my God, I always do it like this, I'm so bad at this, right? Instead of saying, like, huh, interesting. I do it like this. And is that really helping or not? Or how does that make me feel? So we're just really curious. And I feel like this curiosity opens up this like tunnel view. And then we start to see the choices, and then our comfort zone, I would say, also expands. Because I think when we are in this space where we don't really trust ourselves and we're having a hard time and we're not listening to this voice that tells us, come on, it will get better, I think then our comfort zone is really small, and we don't really launch out to try new things. And I think adding curiosity really allows us to do that. And I really love what you said, Amanda, about like, our intuition or our inner spark, whatever you want to call it. I had the exact same experience, in that sense that through my darkest years, there was always this really teeny tiny part of myself that would come out in the darkest moments and say, it's not going to be like that forever. I had zero things to hold on. I had nothing to hold on. Like, there was hardly any hope. But for some reason, this little part of myself told me, just, keep going. It's going to get better. Have faith in yourself. And it did. Like, this part of me did not lie. Like, it kept its promise. And I would say, I call it our inner spark, the part of us that speaks the truest self, and or expresses the truest self, and that part somehow holds our deepest wisdom. Like, it has all the answers that we could ever need and want in life. And I think a lot changes in our trajectory of our life when we just allow this part of ourselves to take the wheel, to lead us. And that's really scary, right? Tyler, you touched on this so beautifully, because we have to let go. We have to let go, and we have to just accept that there are things we cannot control at all, ever. And I think when we try and control, whether it's our stuff or other people's stuff, then this is usually coming from a place of fear. Like, we want to control so that there is order, where we, even if we cannot actually control things. And when we let them go and we let them be and we accept what is, then I think this is more coming from a expansive place within ourselves, from our true self. And I do want to also say that, this mindset, I didn't adopt this mindset in a like weekend workshop with a self-love coach. Right? I really want to like point this out so hard, that my journey that I'm on, I don't know, my self-development journey, maybe, if you want to call it that. I had my first coach probably about 10 years ago. And as Tyler said, this is an ongoing process. So this is not something that's just like done in an afternoon and then you're like, okay, cool, I've got a new mindset, or I'm going to go to this immersive retreat, or, attend a Tony Robbins event, and then everything's going to be like awesome from then onwards. Like, I really want to stress this, but there's also this part where, and maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think you can honestly fall in love with that. Because in the beginning, I always imagined like anything that has to do with personal growth is so hard, is so extra. And I was so in survival mode that I thought, oh my God, like, I don't have extra energy to put into personal development right now. Like, where am I going to get all this energy to keep this up? But then over time, I learned that it's not taking my energy to work on myself. It's actually giving me more energy over time. And then I just fell in love with this so much that I now say the little energy that I have to put into it is going to come back to me, like multiplied by, I don't know, 100 probably. And it's always worth the journey. I feel like this is every time when I rant on personal development, I always arrive at this. It's always worth the journey. And yeah, it's an ongoing journey, and I think there's a way for everyone to fall in love with this process also, and to really embrace it and not have it feel like something that is dreadful.
oh my gosh, you guys, I need like to put this into like some kind like a really short. I'm actually getting an image of like, and this is not how it would work, but putting it into like a little like pill that we can like give to everyone. I always call this like the coaching Kool-Aid, right? Like give everybody a little bit of coaching Kool-Aid, and I'm gonna tell you it's gonna be awesome. Just drink the Kool-Aid. And I feel like that's sort of what we, right? We kind of, all of these things that we just talked about, we put that into like a Kool-Aid and gave that to everyone. What a different world we would live in. Like, how different would people be, right?
I think it would look like the Kool-Aid, it would look like a rainbow, and it would glow, and it would like sparkle and taste very like these little tiny, I don't know what it's called, but the like sour balls, when you have these like prickling feelings on your tongue when you eat them, that's what it would be like. Like you have these tiny explosions.
It would be like Pop Rocks. They used to have that candy Pop Rocks that like you would put it on your tongue and like the rocks would kind of like like not spark, but they would like tingle, you know, and it'd be like
They still have those. I hate those.
I loved them.
Oh, I can't stand them. I feel the like that sound. I don't know what it is. Something about the sound. Something about something. I feel it in my brain, and it just makes me so anxious. I'm not a fan, but I do know exactly what you're talking about. And yes, the sensation. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But again, like I guess maybe it kind of does hurt your brain a little bit to be on this journey, right? And I love that you brought that up though, Stephanie, because I think it is really important, especially as coaches. I think sometimes it's really easy for us to sort of, it is easy for us to have these conversations. I mean, this is where we're here every week, right? But in knowing that maybe for someone who's a little bit newer or someone who's struggling on their journey, and knowing that there's still hope, right? And that at the end of it, it is worth it. We do always say that. And that if it's hard, if you're feeling stretched and challenged, it's okay. It's part of the process. It's, I do feel that it doesn't matter how many personal development, self-help books that we read. And I think we've had this conversation before, that you can read all the books, but it still takes work and it still takes implementation. There's still more than what needs to be done than just reading about what it means, or even, listening to us here, right? Like, these are incredible conversations. And I always find myself afterwards taking a moment of pause and reflecting and internalizing, okay, what have I just experienced here? And allowing that to sink in, and knowing that if at first it kind of feels a little bit strange or foreign or unusual, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Right? Especially if this is something that you're haven't really been exposed to. And I'm of course going to bring it to, this is generational. If maybe everyone in your family, I would say there's some people in my family who are a little bit more, but not everyone in my family is on board or is on this has drank the Kool-Aid. Let's put it that way. They haven't all drank the Kool-Aid yet. And that's okay. And I'm also mindful of time. I'm not going to open up this can of worms, but because I know this could be like, oh my gosh, maybe we'll have to save that for another time. But just this idea of allowing it to be okay, that even though you're on this journey and maybe there's other people in your life who aren't. I know I experience this a lot. I struggle with wanting to give the Kool-Aid to everybody. I'm like, just drink it. Just drink it. I promise you'll love it. But they don't want the Kool-Aid. They have no interest. They don't like Kool-Aid, or they just aren't open to change right now. And so being okay with, I'm on my own journey, And that's what I can control, going back to what we've been saying about control, right? I can control for me, and actually letting go of the fact that, yes, letting go of having to control. But I think another layer to this is letting go of the fact that there's going to be other people in your life who don't understand the journey that you're on, or who think that that Kool-Aid is just some like loopy juice and no one should be drinking that Kool-Aid. Like that's where my mind goes with this.
Loopy juice.
I don't know where that came from.
Sometimes I do feel loopy, you know, and I do feel like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? And like, why, you know, why this path, why this journey? And, you know, it is, and I so appreciate that the two of you have taken a moment to like acknowledge that this is difficult and it's hard and it's challenging. And I think, you know, one of the things, I'm going to go on Tyler's little soapbox for a moment here. I think like as an industry, you know, sometimes we see on social media and we see in all of the different advertisements, it's like be happy in 6 minutes or less, you know, type of stuff, and, you know, change your life in a weekend retreat type of thing. And those events, those like, and I'm going to say even any coaching program that you sign up with, any coach that you work with, like you don't transform your life in one weekend. You don't transform your life over, you know, the course of reading, you know, 5 books, you know. You don't even transform your life after working, you know, with a dedicated coach for like a year. But I mean, and hold on, let me rephrase that. You do transform your life during those things. It's usually not as, again, big as, you know, it's usually advertised or people talk about it. It's like, ooh, bam, like in your lights, in your, you know, flashing lights. And, you know, I always say like, it's like Broadway flair. It's like, ooh, jazz hands, you know, and that is not usually the case. Like usually you struggle and you fall down and you stumble, and, you know, you spend, you know, one night crying in your room because you've had this like major revelation, and, you know, it's opening up this can of worms and that can of worms, and it's messy, and it's not always, you know, sunshine and rainbows and butterflies, even though I would love for that to be the case. You know, it's like it's a real unpacking, it's a real unearthing of, you know, old programming and past conditioning and generational trauma, which we won't dive into that today. But, you know, it's one of those things where like this journey of self-discovery is personal, and there is no end date, there is no final destination. You know, it doesn't have a stop. You know, you can start this journey, you can be as engaged as you possibly want to be at any point of time, but it's not something that just ends. Like you don't reach total transformation, you don't reach you don't reach that final destination. It's a journey, it's an evolution, it's a process. And so I'm gonna share my last thoughts here as I think we're bringing this to a close. But, you know, anybody who wants to go there, who wants to have these, you know, who wants to work on themselves, go for it. You know, you're not going to regret making changes in your life. You know, you'll regret not making changes in your life, but you'll never regret making changes in your life. And when you start this process and when you start to, you know, open up your awareness and create alignment and find authenticity and, you know, really discover yourself, be kind to yourself, have grace, have a lot of love, have a lot of compassion, because it's a very personal experience that, you know, like my journey is not Stephanie's journey, and it's not Amanda's journey, and your journey is not our journey type of thing here. It's very personal. It's very individual. It's very unique to you. And, you know, I'm just sending anybody out there who's listening, who's on their own like personal development journey, like self-love journey. I just want to put out like a ton of love to all of you, because we are right there with you. We're going down our own paths. We're growing and changing every single day. And I just have a lot of love for those warriors out there who are working on bettering themselves and, you know, bettering their lives and bettering the other people around them because they made the choice to change. Like, kudos to you and congratulations on going there. So that's what was coming up for me as we were kind of like having this discussion and having this conversation.
Wow. I wish I listened to somebody like us when I was a teenager. Someone, you know, just to give that hope. And I echo everything Tyler was saying in the sense of just sending out so much love. Truly, I think that, yeah, we are all doing the work, and whether realistically you're doing it actively or not, life is still lifing. And if we can improve our life in any way, it's in really being intentional with reflecting and growing that self-awareness and growing in ourselves and getting to know who we truly are, I think is one of the biggest gifts that we can give to ourselves and to the people in our lives. Even though it can be messy, it can be tricky, yes. It's not a linear path. I want to repeat that it is worth it. It truly is worth it.
And you are worth it.
Aw. Those words are so kind and so sweet. I'm just sitting here and enjoying them myself also. Definitely feeling all the love, and we are really collectively sending so much love out there for anyone who is, I mean, when you're here, you're probably on some kind of self-development journey. So absolutely, just echoing Tyler here, kudos to you. And we believe that you are really, really brave. And shall we like also give ourselves, you know, a pat on the back and say, good job today, right?
Yep.
We showed up, we're here. And just looking back at our younger selves and saying, yes, it got better. Look at us, look at me now. Yeah, so let's round it up for today. Thank you everyone for being here and listening, watching. We appreciate you so much. If you have any thoughts, anything you want to share, feel free to put it in the comments or reach out to us. We love you so, so much. And we will see you again next week for another episode.
Bye. Bye. All the love, all the love. Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.